Great work, Jason. Um, this is great to be starting with such a strong score here at the beginning of our dotted semi-brev evaluations. And yeah, this score has really got a lot of great things to it. I love the fact that you have got a pocket orchestra, really. You have a small number of strings indicated. You don't even have a double bass. You've got uh, five wind players and two horns, timpani and harp. So really, you could probably get by with even more of a reduction in string numbers. I probably would want to add a double bass to this, like even if it was just a single player. I think you could get by in this configuration with like 5 4 3 2 1, right? So five firsts, 4 seconds, three violas, two cellos, and one bass player. And that's the New Century Chamber Orchestra layout under Stuart Kanan. And then when Nadia Salerno Sonnenberg took over, I think she increased the string numbers to 22, and it really became more of just a string orchestra rather than kind of an expansion of the string quartet, which I think was Kanan's original idea. Anyhow, I had friends who played with that orchestra for quite a while, and they loved it because they were able to, the string numbers were so small that really like their individual expression mattered so much more, right, than just being part of this sort of smooth landscape of strings. But anyways, however you do it, however you've concocted it, it's a nice balance right in here. I also love the idea of adding English horn. Now, your scoring for horns and F here is absolutely not, has nothing to do with period practice. And in fact, I would say that the whole vibe of this arrangement is, it's more of a personal interpretation I'm gathering, with, of course, some stylistic sincerity, right? Like you are channeling a lot of what you feel Beethoven means in the score, right? But that doesn't mean that you are channeling the early 19th century by any means, right? So, it feels more like the middle of the 19th century or later. Now, if there's anything that I would say overall, it's that some of your dynamic mixing feels a little off, and I know that you're compensating in some ways, but I think what maybe you need to understand a little bit more about this reduced ensemble is that the strings are at more of a disadvantage. So marking them down in places like here and here doesn't really, it makes them even less effective than they might be, right? So even if there were a justification for it, which I don't feel that there is, right? But we'll talk about some of those issues as we go along. So let's start at the beginning and go through all the evaluation criteria, including the issue of whether or not the intro sets the mood effectively. I feel that it does. I think you did a great job here. You're only going 42, and then we go to 120 here in the middle of the bar, and so on. So I think that all works great. So here you've got your clarinets, ba ba da da da, and so on. Yeah, and I mean the part is, the original right hand part here is written in three parts, and you've kind of very carefully worked your way around that whole thing with, just a careful way that you've scored it here. But it more or less works, but it could be richer with with a little bit more, like if all the winds and all the strings were playing all three voices, right? But I see what you're trying to do here, and it's trying to help reduce the voices when they get up to here. And I can't fault you for that, right? And this da 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 dum played against the violins. That's all great, but I don't think you need to be pianissimo here with your strings. I think piano works fine, and I think the timpani could be pianissimo. and then this roll here on the harp. See, like if anybody needs to be louder, it would be the harp, right? So you might get a situation where the harpist will just play a little louder anyways because they're in a chamber situation and they're like listening to the balance, and so they might be playing what the sound set here thinks is mezzo piano, right? The harpist will think is piano. And the same thing is true here. Like right here, you'll get more of a mezzo forte from the harpist, just trying to fit into the way that this is all rolling along. And same thing here, like mezzo piano as opposed to piano. But that doesn't mean you have to mark them. It's just an observation of like how the balance is working out. Yeah, and the bowing is all great here, so I think that works. Yeah, and the same thing with the phrasing and the strings and and the winds. That's all fine. Okay, so yeah, it beautifully sets up the main theme. And I think especially strong because you don't just continue on with clarinet, right? This, which just makes it a continuation, right? And you are not going too fast. So, like, you're ticking a lot of boxes here. So I feel that this is really nicely done. If anything, I would almost wonder whether or not the harp could be a little bit more gushing here. But you want to keep it simple, and I also respect that too. Watch out for the whole Sibelius thing of turning pickup bars into like bar rests, right? You don't want that, right? So just really make sure that like you have got them all marked as quarter rests. All right. Okay, so the next question is, does the melody start with elegance? See, like here, I think that you could have had longer slurs on your wind parts. Yeah, like not maybe don't slur over a repeated note here, but this could actually be tied, right? So da. See here, I think that works really, really great with the the strings having bowing that works out. Has a nice separation. Like right here, you'll probably find that your concertmaster will just move this over like this, right? Da da, because like there really is nothing about this A, settling on this A. I mean, you might be thinking above and saying, well, I want this to be definitely a separately bowed note because I want it to support what's going on in the flute and the oboe. So I mean, fair enough, but you might find that the concertmaster will just give this two up bows if you insist on this not being slurred into. And then, da, da. See here, I think here in the winds, they don't really need to have a break here. I think that it's better to have the strings supply that. And this is all really great right in here, the cello scoring and so on, and the horns, the way that this all works together. Yeah. Yeah, it has this really beautiful quality of tone to it, and since you're doing chamber scoring, you don't have to worry about so much about the flute being scored so low. I mean, certainly it'll emerge out of the oboe part as it rises, rather than having its own individual sound at the start. But that's all right. You don't want to leave it out. You want it to sort of plot out its emotional arc, and as it becomes audible, it'll just feel naturally like it is coming out of the woodwork. So that just leads to our next question, which is there a natural transition to octaves? And you did that beautifully, right? You don't have support for it exactly in, I mean, it's incidental to the accompaniment part in the second violin to a degree, right? So yeah, but I mean, it still works really, really nicely because you don't really need the octave doubling here in your violins. You could have put this in divisi as well, though, right? If you'd really wanted it. And as to the transcription of the left-hand parts, natural flow, I think that's beautifully observed and expanding without clogging up, pretty much, yeah. yeah, it's a little strange that you lack a crescendo mark here in your English horn. I'm sure that's just an oversight. This is a little strange. I mean, I see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to have the oboe just support a teeny bit with the flute, and then and then just sort of disappear from the picture. That's all well and good, but you still need a crescendo mark here. That's just an oversight, right? All right. See, that feels better to me. Okay, and then sometimes when you have situations like this, it's nice to sort of have to like let the player understand that this is like one dynamic phrase, and then the beginning starts here of the next idea, right? Otherwise, you have situations where, like in a sort of a sight reading situation, like you might get the player all flummoxed and think, oh, I need to come down from a mezzo forte here to a mezzo piano, right? So that may not be exactly what you intend. You might want them to recover. Oops. You might want them to recover back to the mezzo piano that they were right here, or who knows what, right? Whatever the ensemble and the conductor decided to do in terms of the surge here. So anyway, so it's like this is just even if all the other players go out to the edge of their duration with the dynamic, this is just it sort of means the same thing and will get you a better, cleaner beginning here on your flute. All right, and obviously since these are all single instruments, there's no need to mark first flute or a duet or whatever. So I think this works really, really well. Flute working with harp, and then a little touch of bassoon and pizzicato here. Maybe let the pizzicato be tenuto and let the bassoon be staccato, right? And then you'll get a better blend here, or even tenuto staccato. But yeah, so this works great. See, we're going into the whole question of contrast with theme, pretty much because of this blended tone in the first violins and the flute. The solo flute will emerge as an individual element, and I would actually mark it solo here, right? Because of the combination beforehand, right? Just to let them know that all of a sudden they are all by themselves. And then this is really, really great right in here, the way that you've got this all set up. But like once again, I don't think that this needs to be pianissimo, and I think you're also missing the whole crescendo that Beethoven asks for from the fourth beat, right? I think that is an important element. Da 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 da. I do like your little ta 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 ta. I mean I think it's beautiful, and then you have this little push, right? But I do feel like that part of the whole idea here of adding harmonic density that sets up this tutti right in here, it implies that there should be some kind of surge of strength here. And you've got everything all set up: the oboe, English horn. I mean, this all is going to work together really nicely in supporting the melody, and the bassoons and the horns working together, and the strings do not need to be pianissimo. I think that this will all be, see, we have too much dynamic mixing here, Jason, right? Mezzo piano, piano, pianissimo, right? And then I get what you want here. Like you want sort of very backgroundy strings, and then you want them to push into the wind texture. Okay, but I don't think that is as effective in a live situation, especially with chamber size complement. Right? I think in the end it'll just be tissue thin, and you won't get the warmth you need. Right? So I would say have this part be mezzo piano, and then have this everybody come in together, piano, crescendo, right? And then you could go piano subito, just drop back down, right? Anyways, I just feel this needs a little bit of work. It sounds beautiful in your mock-up, Don't get me wrong, and you know, musically it's very effective, but I just feel in terms of the overall dynamic curve, it just needs a little bit of work. Okay. All right, and then this is real lovely in here. This these rolled harp chords. That's interesting. Like we worked recently with a session harpist for the Academy of Scoring Arts. That session, which I'm going to be releasing footage from here on the channel, to help them promote their free memberships, where you can watch the whole thing and other videos. And like the harpist didn't distinguish between rolls in either hand and rolls across both hands, right? She didn't really see that as a different thing. She just rolled from bottom to top, no matter how it was scored. So that is not an indication so much that this is a different effect from this or not. It's just an indication that in her experience of the sessions that she gets called to, you know, when people score this, they want that, right? But that doesn't mean if you want separate rolls with both hands, you know. But like the problem here is that I see is that like these are just broken intervals, right? They're not really like to me a roll requires 3 pitches stacked, right, rather than 2, right? So this is more of a almost like a grace note sort of a situation. But it doesn't mean you can't score it this way. I mean, look at the dun 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 in Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, right? You know, I think that's in a pizzicato. He says got these pizzicato octaves, which he, instead of scoring them as separate eighths, he scores them as as rolled octaves. So anything's possible, I guess. Okay, so you know, getting into this, like, you know, I like the way that you have contrasts of texture here, like, you know, like full orchestra, and then just strings and harp. And then here we have like a push, like the contrast is the dynamic strength, right, with horns and timpani. So I feel this is all very effective. It's nice and subtle, and it's just really a fresh idea. I really like it a lot. So now let's go on to section B. All right. So you complete the phrase, you know, just like it was before. That's all good. And so now we go to a fresh new color. And I mean, how fresh can it be if it's just solo flute again? But still, you know, I mean, what are the choices? Like looking back here, you've got like solo or featured clarinet. It's not really a solo. Featured clarinet, featured oboe, English horn really not being in that register, neither would the bassoon be, right? So you kind of, you know, your choice here really is, to settle on flute. So it works really fine in the whole progression. It's a little strange. Right, so yeah, this is supposed to be down here, right? Okay. All right, so here you've got your fresh new color. Complementary timbre is violas doubling oboe and English horn, and I feel that that's a great way to soften it. And now here, if you're just going to go from mezzo piano to mezzo forte and back, you don't really need this marking here at all, right? You know, like that's as much as you'll probably get. You know, you might be worried that they'll get a little too loud here, but don't worry about that. They'll find their own, you know, like this is a little bit overmarked, I would say. But I do like the nuance here. I do like, you know, you're giving them permission to really push up to this A, right? And they'll take it, and I think that they'll find the right curve here in relationship to the hall and the other players and everything else. And if they're too hot, you can tell them. Okay, and now we get to this, you know, da 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 da. All right, and you've got the harp going dee 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 dee. All right, so yeah. So there's no way really to do this enharmonically, right? Because the B string is the enharmonic of the C, right? So like you can't really, you know, there's like you can't do two different alternating pitches here, which would probably be the best thing to do. I mean, this harpist could go da 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 all day long if you wanted to. There'd be a little bit of a buzz on the repeated D sharp, right? But they could go da 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 da, right, and get that beautifully cleanly. But I think that this works. It's a nice it's a nice sort of suspenseful way of dealing with the energy right in here. And it's kind of cool to have these players trade off. I think this all will work fine. And, I do like, thinking ahead to widening the gap. I love the way that you lead downwards with your double reeds or it's your lower reeds, let's put it that way, not double reeds. Clarinet is a single reed. So everything kind of moving downwards and opening out. All right, and then here we've got this ba-da, da-da, da-da. What if this were a stopped pitch on one of your horn players, right? Going to an open pitch. Then then I think you get that. That's something that I did. I mean, you don't have to do everything I did, but yeah, that would be one way of really having a bit of a snarl there. If you're hearing very furtive noises in the background, those are my cats trying to escape. They're tired of listening to me talk. They want me to talk to them about having some lunch. So let's keep going in that case. So I can take care of that soon. Now, I wasn't too sure about the harmony here in these, on the even beats here in the harp part. I felt it was a little. There could have been some more tweaking around here. My cat has succeeded in opening one of the doors. So yeah, I think this works pretty well, and it's a good build to right in here. Where you bring in your horns, right? So obviously you don't really need your clarinet and English horn anymore to work together on providing harmony or just sort of the middle voice there. So when the horns take it over, you can use your clarinet to support the flute, right? As as both of them support what's going on in your string parts, in your upper string parts. And yeah, so you just get this really wonderful flurry of action in here, and just pushing in here with the oboe, that really does set things up nice. And then here you've got the English horn and bassoon working in tandem. And yeah, you don't even need your second horn here. So I feel that that's all really effective. But I think the crescendo. Doesn't it start 4 bars before? Yeah, it's from about right here, right? And there is a bit of a build. So, you only have that in your harp part, right? But I think that, there could be more pressure here. From around right here. I think that, or maybe here, right? I think that would really help set up the resolution coming up. Yeah, so maybe you had planned to do that with these other parts, but you got it into the harp part and then. Right. But I mean, I understand what you're doing here. You're doing a sort of an additive kind of a crescendo, right? So you're bringing in stronger parts in stronger rolls, and bulking up certain parts, so you don't have to really give everything a crescendo, right? It's just fatter and so on. But that doesn't make your strings any stronger, right? I would just observe. All right. So yeah, so here we have a real push to the forte, and then the trill. Yeah. mean, yeah, it's kind of cool the way that you're dividing up a lot of the roles and sort of trading off between players so that no one player just like does anything for too long, right? Now, this I feel is unnecessary, giving this like to the second so that the first can catch a breath. I mean, see, like you're not really asking them to do a whole lot, and they've got a breath right in here. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know how necessary that is. But it's a good spread, like the, excuse me, it's a good harmonic spread here. There's not too much weight at the bottom, and you are not leaving any holes dynamically. This is kind of cool, the tremolo in your violas and the roll in the timpani and so on. I think that's all very effective. And then of course your trills here in bassoon and English horn. Yeah, I mean it more or less works, though it's fairly low in its pitch, right? So you don't get the excitement at the top of the sound picture. But you've compensated for that in other ways. So just like if you are okay with that sort of rugged, scrubby sound, then fine. Now you'd had a little note on the score, sort of saying that you understood that the harpist was probably going to get drowned out by certain elements here, but you just wanted them to keep playing just for their own enjoyment or just for continuity's sake, right? So what you could have done here is gone to two hands with the right hand taking an octave higher, right? And then you would still get the harp, and it would be a lot clearer to, So just maybe what you could do is from around right here, just change this to ottava, and then drop this part like down an octave or something like that, and then it makes a lot more sense. Okay, so that takes us to C, and this is real exciting because I have not evaluated a part with a C section in it. All right, and it's just, this was one of the funnest parts for me to score, and it looks like you had a lot of fun with it too. Oboe and English horn working together, right? Just like really in a simple way. Da 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 dum, and then we're taking over by clarinet, da 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 dum, and then you just have that simple kind of the completion here with bassoon adding as a complementary note right in here on this D, right? So making that chord right in here. Yeah, that's really, really nice. This might, well, I mean, if you're rising up out of this pitch, then it's perfectly fine for this to be a quarter note. If you want it to dovetail absolutely cleanly, then make this an eighth note, right? And then here you come back to da 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 with bassoon. Of course, like you want things to be clearer and cleaner. You can't get all the way down to D here with your English horn, right? And so you're just really changing things around. So like, yeah, I would say like one of the risks here is that there will be a kind of a sameness, right? And so like the Beethoven is like doing this this kind of a thing where he repeats things but still makes them sound fresh, right? So we have to watch out in terms of how certain phrases are reintroduced so that they have that same feeling of freshness even though the material is cycling, right? So I'm not saying that it would sound stale here, but I'm just saying watch out, okay? But yeah, I do like the connection in some of these parts. I like the way the clarinet finishes things up here, and then everybody comes in this bum bum bum. Okay, so like, getting past all this, so this is all great, right? And the harp playing these little notes, this is all fine. My big concern here are these two little tutti bursts, right? So, here we have we're going to see the phenomenon of the violins absorbing the flute. So if they're going to absorb the flute anyways, I feel that, you know, that you might as well just drop the flute down to its middle register right in here, right? In just, having the or even just leaving it out, because those same notes are being played by clarinet, right? So maybe cut the flute here, and then this rise up an octave feels fresh, right? Rather than, like, if there's a chance that the first flute player would play out here, then this will just feel like you're not really, it doesn't really feel like you're climbing up to the next register, right? See, that's the danger that I feel here, right? And, as far as that goes, by leaving your bass parts in the same register, that's another danger, right? So spreading it out, right, is one way of doing it, but like, if it all is more or less has the same spread with some instruments and others and so on, then I think you should just refer back to what happens in the original piano score, right? The left-hand part jumps up an octave, and that jump provides more resonance, more pressure of resonance on the upper part, right? So that's something that you're lacking here by the way that, kind of keeping a lot of these parts, and, like, for instance, the horn and the bassoon are sort of doing the same thing here, and the cellos are doing the same thing. All right. So it's just a commentary. It didn't sound bad, or didn't sound wrong at all, but it just, it's like, my job is to pick things apart. So that's my picking, right? My picking at your fabric. So, yeah, and then, just kind of revisiting some of the same thing. To oboe. Right, and this is just really lovely, the way this works its way down. You have a consistency of texture in your support, and I feel it's all very natural. And then, going to clarinet, and then going to bassoon. It's obviously, to the extent that this has an orchestral sound, that is probably something that Beethoven might have conceived as well. And this is really nice, the way that you have the bassoons fold into the cellos, right? And yeah, this is all beautiful, just like really soft horns, soft middle register horns with sort of backing the upper strings and so on. I think that all really works. And of course, this is like returning to what we looked at before, so I won't bother commenting on it. But this is really cool right in here, where you have the clarinet come in to this middle register run, and have the first violin sort of emerge out of, da 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 da. So yeah, I feel this is all really nicely done. Perhaps if the English horn is going to be playing harmony with your actual horns, this would be a place where you'd want to go, like, just to make sure that this is pianissimo, right? Maybe it might be good to just put, like, pianissimo in parentheses here or something like that, just for clarity for the conductor and the score reader. Oops, sorry. But yeah, this is a really nice score, Jason. I know that you are a bit of an engraving and scoring geek, in some of these finer points, which is why I'm bringing up a lot of things I might not in most evaluations. So, just little bits of food for thought and so on. It's not really that you scored anything wrong or in need of enormous amounts of adjustment. I know I'm like really going over a lot of things, but actually, this is probably going to be one of my shorter dotted semi-brev evaluations in the scope of things, because you got so many things right. And I think this is such a strong kind of first out of the gate entry for this category here, the dotted semi-brev, taking things all the way to the beginning of D, right? Just really excellent work, and I enjoyed looking at it so much, and I really appreciate all the work you put into it, and some of the feedback and advice you've had for me, and it's and your support of the group and all that stuff. I mean, you're just a great member of the community, and it just really means a lot to get one of these scores from you and have you participate this year. And I'm just like imagining, with this beautiful attention to detail and wonderful sense of balance that you've got, what you're going to do with next year's selection, because it's just going to be like the most unexpected, beautiful little moment in this composer's life that we could all bring to life with our interpretations. So yeah, there's that. So everybody, you know what to do. Give Jason some comments below. And Jason, if you got time, I would really love to hear what you think of like some of the entries so far, and some of those to come in this category. It would just be great to have your feedback and your thoughts about it, because I know you've got a lot to say about certain things, and and it would be great to have that. And everybody's really been awesome so far about adding lots of comments to all of these videos. So let's keep it going, all right, everybody? Thank you, Jason. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, and stand by, because another one of these great scores is coming soon.